to Let's Talk Marriage. This is Pastor Larry coming into you this Wednesday afternoon with Let's Talk Marriage. All right. I hope everyone is doing well. If you woke up this morning, you are doing well. All right. We're going to get right on into our subject on today. Our subject matter on today, we might have to do it in two segments, but we're gonna try to get it through this one segment here. Our segment today is going to be on forgiveness. Yeah, that's a good one there. Forgiveness. We're going to be talking about forgiveness today. It's a big word. All right. Forgiveness. Let's see what it says here. The action or process or of forgiving or being forgiving. And I like this other part here where it says release feelings or resentment or revenge toward a person. Let me repeat that. This is the act of releasing feelings or resentment or revenge toward another person or a person. All right, we're going to get right on into it and continue on our thing here. Hope everyone had a good weekend. We had some little rain, but we celebrated my mother-in-law's birthday, and we had a good time. We still had a good time, even though we had a little rain. For some reason, I ended up cooking. I wasn't supposed to. Anyway. All right. Uh, Most of the time, people that will hurt you the most or people that will hurt you the most is usually someone you know, a close friend, or even sometimes a relative. So, forgiveness is a big thing, and if you don't forgive someone, it's hard to move on. And one of the ways to forgive someone is you have to learn how to release those feelings, release those things in order for you to move on. Because some people take things from another relationship over into a new relationship from an old relationship simply because they didn't forgive that person that might have hurt them in a previous relationship. Because if you're in a previous relationship where it didn't go well, it was a toxic relationship, you have to learn to release those things. And if you don't release those things or learn to forgive them, because if you don't forgive those people, they'll go on with their life and you just sit back miserable because you never forgave them. You have to learn to forgive people of things. And that's a first step into moving forward. How do you move on? You can move on by, like I said, releasing things. And when you release this thing, it's a relief to release. I like that. It's a relief to release some things, and you harbor your feelings, and we all are human, and we all have feelings and stuff, and it's strange when you hear somebody or see somebody or meet someone that don't really have any kind of emotions or anything. At some point, you should have some kind of emotion. I'm not saying you should walk around being dramatic, but you should have some kind of emotion. That's what compels us, or that's what moves us as being human beings. We have emotion. Jesus had emotions. He always moved. When you have compassion, you have emotion. He always moved. The Bible said many times that he moved with compassion, and that's why it's so easy for us as humans to be offended or get hurt, and it's hard to forgive, especially in relationships. When you forgive someone in a relationship, you have to learn how to release it. They always say, they have this song that says, "And it's a year of forgiveness, 70 times 70." But you know what? That's easier sung than done, because to be honest, when you hurt by someone, or if someone hurts you, you don't really forget it. You know, it might slip your mind at one point, but you don't really. It's because we're human. You know, we're not Christ. That's why we strive to be like Christ. You know, He can forget it, and like God forgets our sins and remember them no more. We can't really do that as humans. That's why we have to release our feelings. We don't forget them, but we release it. And when you release that thing, even though you know that that person hurt you, and down the line you might even bring that back up again, especially if you're talking to someone one on one and and they're going through the same thing that you went through. Yeah, you're gonna remember that time and tell them how you got through it. So we don't really, you know how you say, "For in the sea, forget for." Yeah, the God does that, but we as humans, you know, we can't really do that. We still remember, like I said, we have to release that thing, and when you release it, then you can move on. That's how you move on. And people have got in relationships with had good spouses, you know, and because they didn't release some things that happened to them in the past, they carried that baggage over into a new relationship. And when they carried that baggage over into a new relationship, they don't learn. They did not learn how to release those things, and even forgiving yourself. Uh, Sometimes you have to learn to forgive yourself. If you don't forgive yourself, it's hard to release some things. Like if you were on the other end of hurting someone, if you were the one that hurt someone, if they forgave you, or if you ask for forgiveness from them, you have to learn to forgive yourself. Just like when we uh, confess our sin to God, you know, or to Jesus, we have to forgive ourselves as well in order for us to go to the next level. All right, let me see what else I have here. If you tell someone I forgive you, but you you say I forgive you, but I won't forget, you know, but you're still holding on to something. Now, like I said, you don't really forget it, but you don't want to. That's why you have to release it. When you release something, you're not holding on to it anymore because you released it. It'll still be there. Like for instance, if I gave you this paper and you wanted to get rid of it, I can put it down. I can put the paper down. You know, it's still there, but I've released it. I'm no longer holding it. So that's what happens when when you release some things out of your life. You let it go. You know, it's still there, but you're not holding on to it. And that's what we do. We hold on to things, and you know, and we carry them over to different relationships. We even carry them over to churches if you got hurt in a church. But we're talking about marriage right now. So you have to learn to forgive your spouse, and when you forgive your spouse, uh, you have to move on. You can't keep bringing it up. You know, it's there. It's gonna always be there. That thing is gonna always be there. But you, like I said, you have to let it go. When you release it, you let it go. You're no longer holding on to it. You know, no longer harboring. You know, those feelings and things. Okay. Uh, Holding on to your grudge. Yeah, you can't hold on to your grudge. What you're doing is you're holding on to your grudge. You may never truly, like I said, you may never truly forget that thing uh, that's something that someone did to you. You'll never truly forget that. Okay, now let's go on here. Uh, but you have to make an effort to release the thing, and sometimes if you need help in releasing things, because sometimes I know sometimes things are kind of some things are harder than others to release. But if you need to get some help or some counseling with it, by all means, because you don't want to get into a new marriage and start bringing up old stuff and start, just because Jethro treated you wrong, you think, you looking for the new your new spouse to do the same thing, or if Sally Mae treated you wrong, you looking for them to do the same thing the other one. Oh, here we go again. Uh, ain't gonna be no fool twice. You know, you just harboring all these feelings and grudge and resentment. and you have to let those things go. And when you release them, you feel so much better, and you can move on in your life. Here's another thing. A big part of forgiveness is learning to. We talked about the big part of forgiveness is learning how to release. When we don't release things, we can carry them over into another relationship. We just talked about that. You can carry them over into another relationship, and when you carry those things over into another relationship, you bring all that toxic vibes over into a new relationship. Especially when God gives you a husband, or God gives you a wife, you don't want to bring all that baggage over, And first of all, you should have let it go before you walk down the aisle. But sometimes you think you've let it go, you think you released it, then it comes up again, and you realize that you never really had closure, or you never really released it. You're still holding on to something. And and once a person is hurt, again, I'll always say it. You're not going to forget it. So stop beating yourself up trying to forget it. You're not going to forget it. What you have to do is release it. And when you release it, then you can move on. And when you learn to release it, you'll learn to forgive yourself. Because sometimes we get in a situation where we can't forgive ourselves. In order for you to release some things, you have to forgive yourself. If you ask someone to forgive you, if they don't forgive you, you still move on. Because and if you harboring something against somebody, you're holding a grudge against them, you can't sleep at night, and you had a fight with your spouse, and y'all going through some things, and you can't sleep, at night, and tossing and turning because you guys had an argument and stuff. We talked about arguments last week, and now this week we're talking about forgiveness, and you have to learn to forgive it. Again, I tell you that again, and I don't know why people always tell you got to forget about it. You're not. It's gonna always be there. If you release it, when you release it, you can move on. You'll never really forget it. You can get over it, but you will never forget it. It's just like when someone has the loss of a loved one or something. Some people tell them, "Oh, you got to move on." Yeah, you're not gonna forget when you lose someone that's close to you. You never forget about it, but you have to learn how to release it so you can move on. All right, here we go again. Let's go there. People who, there's 4 types of forgiveness. I think T.D. Jakes mentioned this. There's 4 types of forgiveness. People who seek forgiveness, 1. 2, people who forgive. 3, people who forgive themselves. We talked about people forgiving themselves. And 4, people who wonder. This is a good one here. People who wonder if God forgave them. When you ask forgiveness from someone, and even from God, you have to remember that God forgives you. And when God forgives you, forgive yourself. And you can't forgive yourself if you don't believe that God forgave you. First of all, when God forgives you, or when the Lord forgives you, you can move on, because you know that you should know to forgive yourself. That's a very important thing, because some people just think that, oh, I did this, and and he never forgive me, and the Lord ain't never gonna forgive me. You can always just learn how to release some things. That's a very, very, very important word when it comes to relationships. You have to learn how to, I can't stress it enough, learning how to release things in a relationship. And when you stop, when you learn to let go of that baggage, have some closure on those previous relationships. Again, I always say that, and I always stress that if you have to get some counseling, for those, by all means, seek a marriage counselor. I always recommend you see someone that's an example. Like if you see a couple in your church, or a couple that that or even like your parents. If your parents been married for a long time, go to them and talk to them, and they'll tell you, give you some pointers on it. Because some people don't know how to release things. that's something you have to learn to learn how to release things. And when you learn how to release things, you can move on in your life, because life is too short to be holding a grudge about something that happened. Because some people just hold grudges in their family for years, within their marriage for years, and soon as they get into an argument, they start bringing up all the stuff that they said that they forgave the person for. Yeah, you remember that back in 1999 when I first, then it just gets escalated to a whole nother argument, and people start adding to it. So that's a good thing. I love that word release. When you release some things. Resentment. You know what? Resentment, bitter because you were treated unfairly. That's what resentment is. You're bitter because you've been treated unfairly, and it happens to most of us. And even like I said, we were talking about marriage. Even in a marriage, you have resentment. You can end up having resentment if you don't release those things. Resentment starts to come in. You start resenting that person that the Lord gave you with, and the person that you asked the Lord for. And and the enemy always wants to come in and break up a family, and break up a marriage, because God smiles upon a marriage, and marriage is honorable. And it's real easy to have things from your past come back, things to haunt you, especially if you never released those things or never had closure on those things. They can always come back, and you don't want things like that. That's why you have to let those things go, learn how to let them go. If you're not sure how to let them go, just talk to someone, find someone that you can talk to confidentially. Don't talk to a gossiper by all means. Talk to somebody, and they'll show you the things you can learn how to release. You can make a resentment into a new. You can take a resentment into a whole uh, another relationship or a new relationship because you never had a release from the previous relationship. You have to let those things go from those previous relationships, and I always stress that because a lot of times, especially if you were, again, I always say that if you were mistreated in a previous marriage, you want to make sure that you forgive. First of all, you want to make sure that you forgave that person that mistreated you, because if you don't forgive that person, you're not going to be able to release that person and go on to when God gives you someone that's your soulmate. You're not going to be able to forget about what they did to you. And again, you don't really forget about it, but you want to release it. You won't be able to release what they did to you or have closure on what they did to you. So get some closure on your things before you go into another relationship. Make sure you have some closure on some things and give yourself some in between the folks that's been divorced or long-term relationships and thinking about getting back into being married again. Make sure you have some space in between that. That way that you can work on yourself. That way when you work on yourself, you'll give yourself an opportunity to release that other person, especially if it's a toxic relationship or a bad breakup or a bad marriage that's a bad divorce. You went through a bad divorce. There's children involved. Make sure you allow yourself some time to work on yourself. All right, work on yourself, work on your children. That way, when the Lord finally gives you your soulmate, or when you finally meet your soulmate, you will go there without any baggage. You will go there and be the wife that you want to be, or be the husband that the Lord wants you to be. Because and I always say marriage is not hard. It's easy. We make it hard. We make it hard because we haven't released things from the past, and we want to bring it over into the new, into a new relationship. Come on, make some sense, people. That doesn't even make sense to bring something over or you feel that because that way you thinking all men are no good, and the men are thinking most of the women are no good. You bring it in and you on pins and needles, and you're not letting yourself love that person like you should, or the relationship starts to dwindle down. And go back, if you started out with a wonderful relationship, stay with that. And if your relationship developed into a wonderful relationship, it was because you released some things. That's how it developed into new. Because I know when my wife, my wife and I, we've been married over 33 years. Now, when I first got married, I came out of a bad breakup, and there was things that I carried over into in my new marriage. What I had to do is I had to release those things, and when I learned to release those things, let them go, you know, that's when our marriage began to flourish. And the same thing with my wife. She had a bad breakup, and and came over, and when we got together, it was chemistry. We knew it was chemistry, and we knew it was. I knew she was my soulmate. She knew I was her soulmate, and because we learned to release things, you don't do that right away. There's a process that you go through to learn to release some things and let things go and have closure on things. But make sure you have that closure on those things. This is Pastor Larry, and we're going to be signing off today. And don't forget to forgive your spouse. And when you forgive them, don't keep bringing it up. All right. Until we meet again, I'll see you when I see you. This is Pastor Larry with Let's Talk Marriage.